Hey Ma, do you know what bursts my bubble?
What burst your bubble?
Ideas of reference and predicate logic, and I'll explain to you what that means. So I'll be looking at social media, for example, and this is something I often got when I was delusional. I'll be looking at photographs, let's say Dad took, for example, like a photograph of him in the Islanders fisherman jersey pointing, and I'm like, is he pointing at me? And I would often get delusions that he was, mocking me in some way with the photograph. With that said, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think people could be mocking me, or
No.
do you think these photographs
No.
are ideas of reference and predicate logic?
I think, yes. And I think that we as human beings, sometimes we can make our own narrative up, that with anything, sometimes even with a show on TV or an image on the wall.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's very fair, very fair. I would often watch the wrestling show, WWE, and I would often think storylines and things commentators were saying were about me. Like the wrestling shows were referencing me, with storylines and things like that, and that's very much an idea of reference as well.
Did you ever look at a piece of wallpaper or a tile? And if you look at it long enough, you can see what you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, so like even like when it comes to the HIV scare in January 2020, like I often thought, Dad and whoever else was pretty much confessing through social media content before, during, and after it happened that it was going to happen and the whole thing was nefarious and I was reading too much into nothing. But what I need to tell myself is this is emotion. I'm emotionally thinking. Obviously, the HIV scare was very traumatizing for me, but they're not confessing they were going to gaslight me into taking PrEP. Basically, it was an accident, and I'm thinking emotionally, but then when the emotion passes and I calm down, I'm able to see, very clearly that, why would anybody want to get me to take PrEP? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't,
Doesn't make any sense.
It just doesn't really make any sense.
But
I mean, I can get it even more like maybe in their sick and twisted minds, it's revenge for 2011 or whatever. But that's just, it just doesn't make any sense.
I was thinking of you the other day. It's a silly show, Golden Girls, and there's an episode where one of the Golden Girls has a scare because she took a blood transfusion and she took PrEP, and she's waiting for the test to come back. But let me just finish. But she's fine.
This is a TV show, and it doesn't even matter. So let's get back to ideas of reference and predicate logic. So like that can also be, have you ever gone into a coffee shop and you hear somebody say something like, "Oh, did you hear about the crazy story on the news?" Let's say somebody was robbed in Brooklyn, for example.
Right.
And you might be thinking extremely self-consciously. You might be thinking you're defective. And you might hear them reference crazy, and you might think, "Oh no, they're wink wink saying the crazy guy is here." You know what I mean? That's
absolutely,
right. Yeah,
absolutely, because it's a sensitive spot that I absolutely understand that 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
That's it's very hard because it's a sensitive topic for and you internalize it.
Yes. So what you need to realize is, sometimes people could be talking in metaphors and double meanings. It's possible, but for the most part, like the baristas at a coffee shop, for example, they're in their own world, and they're not. But by mentioning like the crazy story in Brooklyn, they're not saying, "Oh, look, Mr. Borat is here." You know what I mean? They're saying they're talking about a crime that took place.
Right. So yeah, you have to realize that most people are busy in their own head, thinking about something. They don't even really, internalize anything you're doing.
And that is
what it is.
What it is.